The Rift Wars. The fractured skies. The sky was broken. Nobody knew when it had started, but the first reports came from the Pacific Ocean. A massive tear in the sky, stretching for miles, glowing with colors that did not belong to Earth. Scientists thought it was an atmospheric phenomenon, until something stepped through. By the time the world realized the truth, it was already too late. Dimensional rifts, as they came to be called, were appearing everywhere. In the deserts of Africa, in the frozen lands of Siberia, above the skyscrapers of New York, and even in the middle of the ocean. Some were small, no bigger than a doorway. Others were gigantic, stretching across the heavens like scars on reality itself. And through them, things emerged. Some of the visitors were human, alternate versions of Earth's own people, confused and lost, their histories different from ours. Others were not human at all. Towering machines with glowing red eyes. Beings of pure energy, drifting like ghosts. Eldritch creatures, twisting and writhing, their forms shifting with every second. Some arrived in peace, offering knowledge, trade, or even sanctuary. Others came as conquerors, their weapons blazing, their voices filled with war cries in languages unknown. Governments scrambled to respond. The United Nations called for emergency meetings. The U.S. military sent fighter jets to patrol the skies, but what could they do against enemies who defied the laws of physics? China fortified its borders. Russia deployed its secret weapons. Europe went into lockdown. Panic spread across the world like wildfire. Religion saw signs of prophecy. Scientists sought explanations. Ordinary people ran, hid, or simply watched in terror. In Tokyo, a rift opened above the city's skyline. A fleet of golden ships emerged, hovering in perfect silence. A message was broadcast in every language known to man. We come in peace. Yet, before anyone could react, another rift appeared just above them. From it, monstrous creatures with razor-sharp limbs spilled out, attacking both the golden ships and the city below. The battle between the two unknown forces turned Tokyo into a war zone in seconds. In Paris, a colossal armored warrior stepped through a rift in the middle of the Eiffel Tower. His armor was black as night, his eyes glowing with an unnatural red. He spoke in a booming voice. "This world belongs to the Dominion of Core." The French military fired at him, but the bullets bounced off harmlessly. With a single wave of his hand, he crushed a tank into scrap metal. In the Amazon rainforest, a rift glowed with an eerie green light. From it, plants and creatures never seen before spilled into the jungle. Trees as tall as skyscrapers, their bark pulsing with life. Beasts with multiple eyes and wings that shimmered like mirrors. The ecosystem itself began to change, as if the Earth was merging with another world. Amidst all the chaos, humanity struggled to make sense of what was happening. Were these invasions, accidents, a natural disaster unlike any before? Some believed the rifts were a gateway to evolution, a chance to expand beyond their own reality. Others saw them as a curse, an end to the world they had known. But one thing was certain: the Earth was no longer alone. The age of a singular world had ended. A new war had begun. The first collapse. The world trembled as the rifts grew larger and more unstable. Skyscrapers flickered like candle flames. Entire cities vanished into thin air. And in some places, people found themselves staring at twisted versions of their own reality. Streets split apart, revealing landscapes that did not belong. Red deserts under purple skies, towering black mountains, and oceans that reflected stars not known to Earth. Governments scrambled to respond, but there was no clear enemy, no war strategy that could stop the chaos. Scientists struggled to understand what was happening, that the laws of physics themselves seemed to break down near the rifts. The more they studied, the less sense the world made. The rifts were not just random anomalies. They were something far worse. They were doorways, and something had started to come through. Then the first attack happened. A city in Europe, once known as Vienna, was swallowed by darkness. When the sun rose again, It was no longer the same city. The buildings were cracked, streets covered in black ash. The people were gone. In their place, soldiers in strange armor patrolled the streets, their weapons humming with energy unlike anything seen before. They carried banners marked with a symbol of a shattered world. They called themselves the Exiled Dominion. News spread like wildfire. Earth was under attack, not by aliens, not by machines, but by something much worse, humans from another world, a world that had already fallen. The Exiled Dominion was a faction from a war-torn reality, a version of Earth that had been consumed by endless war and destruction. They had been searching for a way out, and now, through the rifts, they had found a new home. They came prepared. Their weapons defied logic. Bullets passed through them like smoke, and explosives did nothing against their armor. They wielded strange energy blades that cut through steel like paper. Their soldiers moved with impossible speed, vanishing and reappearing in a blink. Entire military divisions fell before them, unable to fight back. One by one, the world's greatest cities fell. London, gone. Tokyo, in flames. New York, overrun. The armies of Earth fought with everything they had. Tanks, fighter jets, nuclear weapons. But nothing worked. Every attempt to destroy them only made them stronger. The Exiled Dominion used the very energy of the collapsing rifts to fuel their war machines. With every battle, they grew more powerful. Panic spread across the world. Nations turned against one another, believing their neighbors had caused the disaster. Civil wars broke out. The planet itself seemed to reject humanity, reshaping itself into something unfamiliar. Then, a new rift opened in Antarctica. Unlike the others, this one did not unleash destruction. It did not swallow cities or summon nightmarish invaders. Instead, it revealed something hidden beneath the ice, something ancient. A structure, massive and untouched, buried for millennia. The rift had uncovered a secret long forgotten by history. A research team was sent immediately. Scientists and military specialists braved the freezing winds, moving carefully toward the mysterious structure. As they got closer, their instruments went wild. The air crackled with energy. The laws of time and space twisted around them. Some men collapsed, overwhelmed by the strange force. Others heard whispers, voices speaking in a language older than any known to man. At the heart of the structure, they found it. An artifact. It was unlike anything seen before. A sphere of dark metal, floating above an ancient pedestal, glowing with shifting colors. The moment they stepped near it, the air grew heavy. The whispers became clearer. It was not speaking. It was waiting. One of the researchers, Dr. Elias Voss, stepped forward. He had spent years studying anomalies, but nothing had prepared him for this. With shaking hands, he reached out. The moment his fingers brushed the surface, the world around them shifted. Visions exploded in his mind. Wars fought in the stars, civilizations rising and falling, creatures not of this world battling across dimensions. And then one image burned itself into his thoughts. A weapon. The artifact was not just some ancient relic. It was a key, a piece of something far greater. A lost technology meant to fight against forces beyond human understanding. A weapon designed to stop invasions like the one Earth was now facing. The artifact pulsed, responding to his thoughts. A beam of energy shot into the sky, tearing through the storm clouds above. For the first time since the invasion began, something pushed back against the chaos. The rifts flickered. The soldiers of the Exiled Dominion hesitated, their technology faltering. Hope ignited. Dr. Voss turned to his team, his voice filled with urgency. We have a chance. This is what we've been searching for. We might have a way to fight back. The Riftborn Legions. The sky above Earth turned into a swirling mass of darkness. Strange, shifting figures slithered out of the void, their forms twisting and changing as if they did not belong to this reality. The Riftborn had arrived. These creatures did not just kill, they consumed the very essence of existence, bending the laws of physics with their presence. Where they walked, matter dissolved, and time itself fractured. Commander Elias Carter stood on the warship Iron Will, watching the chaos unfold through the massive viewport. The Riftborn Legions had spread across cities, devouring entire districts before anyone could react. Bullets and energy weapons barely slowed them down. Explosions swallowed them whole, only for the creatures to reassemble as if the destruction had never happened. This war just became impossible, Major Lin muttered beside him, gripping the railing. We can't fight something that ignores the laws of reality. Before Elias could respond, an alert blared through the command deck. A new fleet had appeared on the scanners. Unlike the twisted horror of the Riftborn, these ships were sleek, metallic, and unmistakably human. Unknown fleet detected, the AI announced, broadcasting a message on all frequencies. A massive screen flickered to life, revealing a man in a golden uniform. His presence was commanding, his gaze sharp with confidence. Behind him, soldiers stood at attention, their armor polished and bearing a crest that no one on Earth had ever seen before. I am Lord General Valen of the Grand Terran Empire, he declared. We come from an alternate Earth, one that has already conquered the multiverse. We have seen the horrors of the Riftborn before, and we know how to stop them. A ripple of murmurs ran through the command crew. Elias narrowed his eyes. What's the cost? He asked, his voice even. Valen smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. Surrender your planet to the Grand Terran Empire. Accept our rule, and in return, we will drive back the Riftborn and make humanity stronger than ever. The command deck fell silent. Major Lin clenched her fists. You mean to enslave us? Valen raised an eyebrow. Enslave? No. We would guide you. Your Earth is weak, primitive. Alone, you will fall. But under our rule, you will ascend beyond the limits of your small existence. Elias exhaled slowly. The choice was clear. Fight alone against an enemy that defied reality, or bow to a stronger version of humanity that had already conquered countless worlds. We need time to consider, he said. You have 24 hours, Valen replied. After that, we will assume you have chosen death. The screen went dark. Elias turned to his officers. Thoughts? We can't trust them, Lin said immediately. They see us as nothing more than another colony to absorb. But they might be our only hope, Lieutenant Rafik countered. We've lost half the planet in just a few days. We have no way to stop the Riftborn. Elias rubbed his temples. The weight of the decision pressed down on him. He had spent his life fighting for Earth's independence. But what did independence matter if there was no Earth left to defend? The Riftborn howled in the distance, their cries echoing across the dying world. Time was running out. Deep in the underground bunker of the Earth Defense Command, scientists and military leaders debated their options. General Catherine Hayes stood before a holographic map, pointing at red zones spreading across the globe. At this rate, we won't last another month, she said grimly. We either make a deal or prepare for extinction. Dr. Marcus Alien, one of Earth's top physicists, cleared his throat. There may be another way, he said. We have been studying the Riftborn's energy signatures. If we can replicate their dimensional frequency, we might be able to create a disruption strong enough to push them back. Elias leaned forward. Are you saying we could build a weapon against them? Alien nodded. It's a theory, but it will take time. Elias turned back to the map. The Grand Terran Empire's fleet hovered just outside the planet's orbit, waiting for an answer. The Riftborn continued their relentless advance. The fate of Earth balanced on the edge of a knife. What do we do? Lin asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias took a deep breath. The next 24 hours would decide the future of humanity. The War of 1,000 Earths. The sky above burned with unnatural fire, glowing red as massive warships clashed across the torn fabric of reality. Cities crumbled as energy blasts ripped through buildings, and soldiers from different versions of Earth fought desperately, some for survival, others for conquest. Humanity had always believed they were alone in the universe, but now they faced a terrifying truth. They were not even alone in their own reality. The multiverse had shattered, and countless Earths had emerged, each with its own version of history, each with its own destiny. Some Earths had advanced beyond imagination, wielding technologies that could rewrite matter itself. Others had fallen into chaos, ruled by warlords who saw this war as an opportunity to conquer. General Elias Carter stood on the command deck of the U.S. Titan, an enormous warship floating above what was once New York City. The city below was barely recognizable, a battlefield littered with the wreckage of fallen war machines. His crew worked tirelessly, coordinating strikes against enemy forces that poured through the rifts. Unstable portals connecting parallel worlds. Status report. Carter barked, his voice carrying across the command center. Sir, Earth 214 is under heavy assault from Dominion forces. They're bringing in siege walkers, massive mechs powered by energy cores. If we don't send reinforcements, they'll wipe out the resistance there within the hour. Lieutenant Ramirez responded urgently. Carter clenched his fists. The Dominion was one of the greatest threats in this war, an empire built from tyrannical versions of humanity that sought to enslave every other Earth. They believed in absolute order, a universe where only their rule existed. Deploy the Shadow Fleet, Carter ordered. Tell them to engage at full force. We can't let the Dominion take another world. As the command was relayed, massive warships vanished into the rifts, jumping between realities in an instant. The battlefield stretched across dimensions, with conflicts raging in the skies, on the ground, and even beneath the oceans of alternate Earths. Yet, amidst the chaos, a chilling discovery had been made. Dominion prisoners had started speaking of something far worse than their empire. The rifts, the very gateways that had thrown the multiverse into war, were not natural. They were being torn open deliberately by something else. A scientist named Dr. Lorna Hayes had been studying the rifts for months, trying to understand their source. Now she stood in front of Carter, her face pale with fear. "General, we've been wrong this entire time," she said, her voice shaking. "We assumed the rifts were an accident, that the multiverse simply collapsed. But that's not true. Someone, is creating them." Carter narrowed his eyes. "Who?" Dr. Hayes took a deep breath. "We don't know yet, but the Dominion prisoners keep mentioning the same name, the Architects." Silence filled the room. The word carried a strange weight, as if it didn't belong in human language. "What do they want?" Carter asked. "We don't know that either," Hayes admitted. "But I've analyzed the rift patterns. They're not random. They're precise. These rifts are being opened at key strategic points. Someone is guiding this war, pushing it toward something." Carter felt a chill crawl up his spine. "So this war isn't just between Earths," he said grimly. "There's something bigger at play." Before anyone could respond, an alarm blared across the ship. "Sir, a new rift is opening," Ramirez shouted. "And it's massive." On the main screen, a rift unlike any other began to form. It wasn't a swirling vortex of energy like the others. This one was a perfect, glowing doorway, carved with unknown symbols that pulsed with a cold blue light. And from its depths, shadowy figures began to emerge. Figures that were not human. Carter stared at the screen, his heart pounding. The war of 1,000 Earths had just become something far worse. The true enemy had arrived, the Architects of the Rift. A signal echoed across the void, rippling through the largest rift in space. It was not a normal transmission. No static, no distortion. It spoke in every human language at once, a chorus of voices blending into a single message. "You have arrived at the threshold of understanding." The words sent a chill through the control room of the UHS Endeavor. Captain Reynolds exchanged nervous glances with his crew. The signal came from beyond the rift, from a region no human had ever explored. "Is this some kind of anomaly? A natural phenomenon?" Lieutenant Carter asked, her fingers flying over the console. "No," Dr. Patel, the League Xenolinguist, whispered. This is intelligence." Reynolds straightened. "Send a response. Standard greeting. Let's see if it reacts." The transmission was sent, but the reply was instantaneous, as if the sender had anticipated their response. "We are the architects of the rift. We have watched you. We have guided you. Now we decide your fate." The blood drained from Reynolds' face. "Guided us. What does that mean?" "It means," Paddle said, her voice unsteady, "we are not alone, not just in this universe, but across all of them." A holographic projection flickered to life before them. It showed entire galaxies shifting like pieces on a vast cosmic chessboard. Glowing threads connected civilizations across time and space, shaping them, directing them. Then, the projection zoomed in, onto Earth. "My God," Carter breathed. "They've been watching us." The architect's voice returned, calm and emotionless. "Every civilization reaches a moment of revelation, a moment where it learns it is not the master of its own destiny. That moment is now." Reynolds clenched his fists. "Why? Why reveal yourselves now?" "Because now you are worth observing. Now you must be tested." The projection shifted again, showing countless other species across the multiverse. Some rose to incredible heights, their technology surpassing imagination. Others crumbled, erased from existence. "They're experimenting," Patel murmured. "They manipulate civilizations like a grand experiment." The weight of the truth pressed down on them. Humanity was not alone, not special. They were merely one of countless pieces in an unfathomable game. Then the architect spoke again. "You stand at the precipice. Will you ascend, or will you fall?" A choice had to be made. But what choice was there against beings who viewed entire universes as nothing more than pieces on a board? Reynolds exhaled slowly. "We're not pawns, we are human. And we will decide our own fate." Silence followed. Then, for the first time, the architects responded not in words, but in something far more terrifying. The rift began to open wider. The Final Convergence. The universe trembled as the rifts collapsed one by one. The sky above Earth was no longer stable. It cracked like glass, revealing glimpses of other worlds flickering in and out of existence. Soldiers, machines, and entire cities were being swallowed by the instability. If the collapse continued, everything would be erased. In the war room beneath the last human stronghold, Commander Eric Kane stood before his strike team. The situation was worse than anyone could have imagined. The rifts weren't just unstable, they were breaking apart time and space itself. "Our only chance is the Rift Nexus," Kane said, his voice heavy with urgency. "It's the source of the rifts, controlled by the architects. If we don't shut it down from the inside, we're all dead." The team was small, only 5 warriors, each handpicked for their skills. Dr. Evelyn Voss, the physicist who had studied the rifts for years. Captain Darius Holt, the best pilot in the fleet. Riko Tanaka, an infiltration specialist. Sergeant Malik Reed, a weapons expert. And Kane himself. Their mission: enter the Nexus, find the core, and disable it. No one knew what lay beyond the rifts, but there was no turning back. The team stepped through the largest rift, and at once, reality twisted around them. Colors bowled together, time seemed to freeze and skip forward at random. Then they were inside. The Rift Nexus was not what they expected. It was not a battlefield, nor a machine, but a city, a towering metropolis of impossible architecture, with glowing pathways stretching into infinity. It pulsed with energy, alive and watching. "They built this," Malik whispered. "No," Evelyn said, her voice filled with awe. "They became this." Figures emerged from the glowing corridors. The architects. They had once been human-like, but now they were something else. Their bodies were tall and slender, their skin shimmering like liquid metal, Their eyes burned with knowledge beyond human understanding. One of them stepped forward. Unlike the others, this one had features that almost resembled a human face. It spoke in a voice that echoed in their minds. "You should not have come." Kane tightened his grip on his rifle. "We don't have a choice." The architect tilted its head, as if amused. "You seek to stop the collapse, yet you do not understand it." Evelyn stepped forward. "Then explain it to us." The architect waved a hand, and suddenly, they saw it, visions of the past. The architects were once like humanity, a race on the brink of destruction, fighting endless wars. But instead of falling, they ascended. They merged their minds with the fabric of reality itself. They became gods of time and space, beyond life and death. And now, they saw humanity walking the same path. "You are dangerous," the architect said. "You have a weapon that defies existence. We have seen what happens when a species wields such power." The team exchanged glances. What weapon? They had no such thing. Then Kane understood. "It's not a weapon," he said slowly. "It's us." Humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology, numbers, or strategy. It was their will to survive, to adapt, to fight even when the odds were impossible. The architects feared them because they knew what humanity could become. Another race of gods. Another force that could reshape reality itself. The architect's expression did not change, but the air around them grew heavy. "We cannot allow you to continue." The team readied their weapons, but the architects did not attack. Instead, the city itself began to shift. The walls closed in. The pathways vanished. "They're collapsing the Nexus," Evelyn shouted. "We need to move," Kane ordered. They ran, dodging as the world around them crumbled. The Nexus was rejecting them, trying to erase them from existence. Darius activated a charge, blasting open a path forward. Through the destruction, they saw it, the Rift Core. A swirling mass of energy, the source of the entire war. If they destroyed it, the rifts would collapse for good. "No more second chances," Kane said. "We take it out now." Malik set the explosives while the others held off the architects. They didn't fight with weapons, they fought with reality itself. Time looped, space twisted, but the team pushed forward. The timer counted down. 10, 9. The architects realized what was happening. 8, 7. The city trembled. 6, 5. The architects vanished. 4, 3. A voice echoed in Kane's mind. "You are not ready." 2. Then everything turned white. The team awoke on Earth. The sky was clear. The rifts were gone. The war was over. But something felt different. Evelyn looked at Kane. "Did we win?" Kane exhaled slowly. "I don't think we were supposed to." Far above, in the unseen layers of reality, the architects watched and waited. The Chrono-Paradox. The ice cracked beneath their feet as the storm howled across the frozen wasteland. Dr. Elena Carter tightened her grip on her rifle, even though she knew it was useless against what they had discovered. The artifact stood before them, pulsing with energy, its surface shifting like liquid metal. General Hayes took a cautious step forward. "This isn't alien," he said, his voice barely audible over the wind. "It's human." The team exchanged nervous glances. Dr. Kwan, the physicist, tapped furiously on his tablet, scanning the readings. "This material, it matches no known element, but its atomic structure is eerily familiar. If this is human-made, then..." Before he could finish, the artifact came to life. A deep hum vibrated through the ice, and the storm around them seemed to freeze in time. A distorted voice echoed from the artifact, ancient yet familiar. "We win the Rift Wars, but we become the next architects." The words sent a shiver down Elena's spine. The message continued, broken and fragmented, as if it had traveled across centuries. The cycle repeats. We conquer the multiverse. We become what we feared. You must choose. A holographic image flickered into existence above the artifact. It showed Earth, not as they knew it, but as a lifeless husk, its cities crumbling, the oceans dried up. The sky was dark, filled with massive structures that resembled the architect warships they had fought against. Dr. Kwan gasped. This is our future." "No," Elena whispered. "This is our destiny if we don't stop it." General Hayes clenched his fists. "We fought to save humanity, not to become monsters. How does this happen?" The artifact pulsed again, and another message played. "The Rift Network. It does not just lead to other universes. It rewrites civilizations. The moment we won, we lost ourselves." Elena stepped closer, her mind racing. The Rift Network had been their salvation in the war against the Architects. It allowed them to strike across dimensions, to outmaneuver an enemy beyond comprehension. But had it also been their downfall? "If we destroy the Rift Network," she said, "we stop this future. We remain human." "And if we don't?" Dr. Kwan asked. Hayes' expression was grim. "Then we ascend. We take the place of the Architects and rule existence." Silence fell over the team. The weight of the choice pressed down on them like a physical force. Destroy the Rift Network and protect their humanity, or embrace the power and become the very gods they had once fought against. Elena turned to General Hayes. "Sir, we have the means to destroy it. But once we do, there's no going back. We'll be cutting off our greatest advantage, leaving humanity vulnerable." "Better to be vulnerable than to lose our souls," Hayes muttered. He turned to the team. "We have to decide. Now." Dr. Kwan hesitated. "What if there's another way? A way to use the Rift Network responsibly?" The artifact pulsed, almost as if responding to his words. "There is no balance. Power corrupts. The cycle must end." Elena felt her heart pounding. The images of the future Earth burned into her mind. The towering architect-like structures, the cold void where oceans once were, the absence of life. Was this what awaited them if they didn't act? "We destroy it," she said firmly. "We don't become them." General Hayes nodded. "Then we finish this." The team moved quickly. Dr. Kwan and the engineers began setting up the charges around the artifact. The Rift Network's core was buried deep within the ice, connected to countless other nodes across the world. If they could overload this central hub, the entire system would collapse. 5 minutes, Dr. Kwan called out as he wired the last detonator. "Once this goes off, the Rift Network will start collapsing in on itself. We'll have a few hours to evacuate before the energy shockwaves tear through the remaining nodes." Elena exhaled slowly. No turning back now. As the countdown began, the artifact pulsed one last time. A final message. "You have chosen the path of humanity. Beware, others may seek to rebuild the cycle." Then the artifact went dark. The wind returned, howling through the icy wasteland. The storm moved again, as if time had resumed its course. General Hayes took one last look at the machine before turning away. "Let's go home." The charges detonated. A brilliant flash of light consumed the artifact, and the ground trembled. The Rift Network was collapsing. They had won, but at what cost? As they evacuated, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that someone, was watching. Far beyond the rift, in the depths of the multiverse, unseen eyes had taken notice. The war was over, but the real battle had just begun. The final battle beyond time. The Architects had no intention of allowing humanity to escape their fate. They unleashed their most terrifying creation yet, timeless warriors. These beings were unstuck from time itself, capable of erasing an enemy before they were even born. They did not simply fight in the present. They struck in the past, the future, and every possible timeline where humanity had ever existed. Earth's defenders had expected a brutal battle, but nothing had prepared them for this. Time itself became their enemy. General Leon Carter stood in the command center of the Rift Fleet, watching the battlefield unfold on massive holographic screens. Time fractures spread across space like cracks in glass. Through these fractures, warriors from different eras appeared, ancient humans wielding swords, futuristic soldiers with plasma rifles, and figures that had never existed in recorded history. The architects had rewritten time. Admiral Reina Vasquez, leader of the Rift Engineers, rushed toward Carter. "They're hitting us across the timeline. We're losing entire fleets before they even launch. Our past is vanishing." Carter clenched his fists. "Then we fight beyond time. Deploy chrono units and activate rift stabilizers. If they want to erase us from history, we make sure history fights back." The war across time. The battle spread through all of time. On Earth, prehistoric humans fought beside cybernetic warriors. In ancient Rome, legionnaires clashed against architect war machines. In the distant future, human starships dueled with vessels that had no origin. Every moment in time became a battlefield, and the war spiraled beyond control. Captain Elias Kane of the Time Vanguard stood on the deck of his time-warped ship, the Infinity Spear. His crew had been pulled from different eras: soldiers from World War II, samurai from feudal Japan, scientists from the 25th century. They were humanity's last hope. A burst of golden energy shattered space in front of them. A timeless warrior stepped through, a figure wrapped in shifting armor, its face a blur of 1,000 different versions of itself. It raised a glowing blade, aiming at Kane. "No more games," Kane shouted. "Target the Prime Rift. If we close it, we stop them at the source." The Infinity Spear accelerated, dodging attacks that came from both the past and the future. Timeless warriors phased in and out of existence, attacking from every angle. The ship's shields flickered as time itself twisted around them, breaking the cycle. At the heart of the Architect invasion was the Prime Rift, a swirling vortex of time energy, located in deep space. It was the source of their power, the doorway through which they controlled history. Humanity's final fleet, led by General Carter, launched their assault. Massive warships fought against timeless enemies. Some ships vanished from existence before they could even fire. Others appeared, as if summoned from alternate realities where they had already won the war. Carter's ship, the Eternity Blade, led the charge. "All ships, focus fire on the rift. We're shutting it down, once and for all." The architects unleashed their ultimate defense, the Harbinger, a being made entirely of fractured time. It was every warrior who had ever fought for the architects, merged into one unstoppable force. It struck at humanity's forces, collapsing timelines, turning allies into enemies, rewriting history itself. Then, something changed. The Rift Engineers activated the Chrono Reversal Drive. A pulse of energy spread outward. Time fractures began closing. Past, present, and future started stabilizing. The architects panicked. For the first time, they felt fear. Kane, aboard the Infinity Spear, locked onto the Prime Rift. "We end this now." He fired a singularity warhead straight into the vortex. The Prime Rift collapsed. The Harbinger screamed, its form unraveling as time corrected itself. The timeless warriors vanished. The architect fleet crumbled. Across history, humanity remained, unbroken. A new future. As the battlefield settled, General Carter watched the stars. "Did we win?" Admiral Vasquez asked. Carter exhaled. "We survived. And for the first time, time belongs to us." The war was over. Humanity had fought beyond time itself, and won. The Ascension War. The final battle had begun. Across the shattered remnants of the rift, the sky burned with energy. Warships clashed, planets crumbled, and the void screamed with the fury of countless dying civilizations. Humanity, the last resistance, stood against the architects in a war that had lasted for ages. But now, the truth was finally revealed. Commander Ethan Voss watched the chaos unfold from the bridge of the Eclipse, his face grim. He had spent his whole life fighting against the architects, believing them to be the ultimate enemy. But they were not. Dr. Celine Carter, the brilliant scientist who had uncovered the truth, spoke urgently. The architects were never the first rulers of the rift. They were created by something even greater, something ancient. The rift itself is a machine, built to control reality, and we are just another part of its endless cycle. The words felt like a weight crushing down on Ethan. You're saying this war has happened before? Celine nodded. Not just before, again and again. The architects were once like us, rebels fighting against the system, but they lost. And when they lost, they became the new masters. The rift reshaped them, making them its enforcers. It will do the same to us if we fail. Ethan clenched his fists. Then we break the cycle. We destroy the rift. Celine hesitated. It's not that simple. The rift doesn't just connect worlds. It binds realities together. If we destroy it, we don't know what will happen. It could erase everything. Admiral Kane, the leader of the human fleet, spoke over the comms. We don't have a choice. If we let the rift win, we become the next architects. I refuse to let humanity become monsters. The decision was made. The Eclipse and the remaining fleet pushed toward the rift's core, fighting through endless waves of architect warships. The architects had sensed the threat and were throwing everything they had to stop humanity's final attack. Massive titans of steel and energy clashed in space, unleashing destruction beyond imagination. But humans were not fighting alone. Other species, those who had suffered under the architects, had joined the battle. The war had brought unity where there was once only fear. Inside the rift, Ethan and his team boarded the central control sphere. The structure was alive, its walls pulsing with raw energy. The heart of the rift was not a machine, nor a being. It was a mind, a will that had controlled reality for eons. A voice echoed in their heads. You seek to end what cannot be ended. You are part of the cycle. Accept your fate. Ethan growled. I choose my own fate. He raised his weapon and fired at the control node. A shockwave of energy knocked them back. The rift fought back, trying to reshape their minds, twist them into something new. But Celine activated the disruptor device they had built, humanity's last weapon. It burned through the rift's defenses, breaking its hold on their minds. The voice screamed in rage. You will unmake everything. Ethan didn't hesitate. Better nothing than this endless war. With a final command, Celine triggered the self-destruct sequence. The rift core cracked, its energy spiraling out of control. The entire structure began to collapse. Outside, the battlefield shifted. The architects, once invincible, faltered. Their ships lost power. Their bodies froze. The rift had controlled them. And now it was dying. Ethan and his team ran, barely escaping as the core detonated. The Eclipse pulled them back aboard just in time. The human fleet jumped to safety, watching as the rift imploded. And then, silence. No more war. No more architects. The rift was gone, but the cost was unknown. As Ethan looked out into the void, he wondered, had they truly saved reality? Or had they doomed it to something worse? Only time would tell. The cycle was broken, but the future was unwritten. The Riftless Dawn. The war had reached its breaking point. The skies of Earth burned with the colors of a fractured reality. The multiverse, once a vast ocean of endless possibilities, now trembled under the weight of humanity's final gamble, the Riftless Gambit. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was not a fleet of warships or an army of super soldiers. It was an idea, a desperate strategy that would end the war in one irreversible moment. The final battle raged across the cosmos. The Riftborn, the ancient entities who thrived on the multiversal cycle, fought with everything they had. They had always existed. They always would. To them, humanity was just another civilization that would rise and fall within the grand loop of existence. But this time, the loop was breaking. General Elias Voss stood in the command center of the Ark Citadel, the last great bastion of human defiance. His face was worn, his eyes hollow, but his resolve was unshaken. He turned to Dr. Lina Cade, the scientist who had devised the unthinkable plan. Her hands trembled over the control panel. There was no turning back now. "Activate the Riftless device," Elias commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Lina hesitated for just a fraction of a second. "Once we do this, we sever everything. No second chances." Elias nodded. "Do it." Lina pressed the final sequence, and the Riftless device came to life. Across the battlefield, every rift that had ever existed flickered and pulsed. The Riftborn screeched in agony, their forms twisting and contorting as the very source of their existence turned against them. The rifts, once portals of infinite power, now became an implosion device, collapsing in on themselves. The universe shook. Space itself rippled as the laws of reality rewrote themselves. The Riftborn, once gods of the multiverse, disintegrated into nothingness. Their screams echoed through the void. And then, silence. A blinding explosion of light erupted across the cosmos. It was not fire, not energy as humanity knew it. It was the unraveling of something far greater. The multiverse, with all its endless loops and echoes, crumbled into a singular point. Then, darkness. Elias awoke to silence, not the absence of sound, but the absence of something greater. The weight of infinity was gone. He pushed himself up, his body aching as if he had been crushed beneath a mountain. Around him, the remains of the Ark Citadel lay in ruins, but there was air, gravity, existence. He stumbled outside, his boots crunching against shattered debris. The sky above was different. No rifts, no shifting colors, no flickering doorways to other realities. Just a sky. A single, endless sky. One by one, the survivors emerged. Lina was among them, her face pale but alive. The soldiers, the engineers, the refugees, they all looked up, trying to understand what had happened. The Riftless gambit had worked. Humanity was alone now. The multiverse was gone. There were no alternate versions of Earth, no parallel timelines where they could have escaped. No second chances. They had won the war, but at what cost? Elias turned to Lina. "Confirm it." She was already scanning with the last working sensor array. After several agonizing minutes, she nodded. "The readings are stable. No rift activity. No anomalies." She looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "We're in a single, isolated universe." The weight of her words settled over them all. For the first time in human history, they were free from the endless cycle. No gods watching from beyond the rifts. No wars spilling over from other dimensions. No predators lurking in unseen realms. Humanity had its own universe now. A single timeline. A single reality. But was it worth it? The cost had been unimaginable. Countless lives lost. Worlds destroyed. The very nature of existence rewritten. There was no way to know what had been erased, what had never been, what had been lost in the collapse. A young soldier, barely more than a boy, looked up at Elias. "What now, sir?" Elias exhaled, staring at the endless horizon. He had spent his entire life fighting against the Riftborn, against the impossible. Now there was nothing left to fight. There was only survival. "We build," he said at last. "We start over." A murmur spread through the crowd. There was fear, yes, but there was also something else. Hope. A future they could shape, without interference, without the weight of infinite possibilities crushing them. They were free. Truly free. Lina wiped a tear from her cheek and smiled faintly. A new dawn. Elias looked out at the horizon, at the rising sun of this singular, lonely universe. The Riftless Dawn. The war was over. Humanity remained.